we know who the newest member of the Houston Texans is. With pick number 42, the Texans selected Georgia cornerback Kamari Lassiter. The run on cornerbacks continues here in the second round. We saw a couple of teams sneak in front of the Houston Texans to draft corners. With pick 40, the Philadelphia Eagles traded up to go get Cooper DeJean from Iowa. The very next pick, the New Orleans Saints traded up to go and get Kool-Aid McKinstry, a corner from Alabama. The Texans end up with the third cornerback taken in the second round. Guys, what do you think about the move?
I would say, first off, it feels like the Texans had their guys snagged from them. We had a conversation about Kool-Aid McKinstry and Nick Saban talking a great deal about him in a positive way. We know they took several Alabama players last year. There's a connection there. And the Saints trade up, and the guy they take is an Alabama corner. It feels like the Texans, even if they like Cooper DeJean, it feels like the Texans had two teams sense what they were after and snake them. And we'll definitely hear that they love Kamari Lassiter, because what else can you say? And if you take him in the second round that high, you do have to like him. But I'm not sure the 6', 187 corner was the one they were after when these two come off the board.
Yeah, and still it falls true to what Nick Caserio always does. He takes a player from a big-time program coming out of Georgia here. So it fits the narrative of what the Houston Texans typically do. And like when we were, kind of going through some of Lance's profile, I'm sure we'll read more of that here in a second. But if he can play man coverage, one of the things that I was looking at this offseason with the acquisitions they made is like maybe they're going to change a little bit. Because like we saw Derek Stingley Jr. have his most success in man last year. And that, to me, this pick with it kind of signals that the Houston Texans defense is going to be more man-focused going forward into the future. This is not one of those guys that, Paul, you and I talked about this earlier today. You expect him to come in day one, make an impact. This is not someone I would have that expectation for, but now you've got a cornerback room with Henderson, Okudah, Lassiter that gives you good competition, and whoever the best man is and wins that second cornerback spot, you would probably feel okay about, regardless of the end result, and then hope that this guy, that Lassiter, develops over time.
Joe referring to two former top 10 picks in Jeff Okudah, former Lion, and C.J. Henderson, former Jaguar. Both of those guys have made other pit stops along the way before the Houston Texans signed them this offseason. Let's take a look at Lance Zierlein of our morning show here, ESPN 97.5 and 92.5's draft profile. Projected round 3 pick, a little write-up. Spunky but slender with the mentality to sift through the highs and lows that come with the position. Okay, that's good. Means he has a short memory, you would think. Lassiter has the athleticism and dog to play, as Joe said, press man coverage, also all forms of zone. His instincts and play recognition are getting better to help shadow routes and pester catch points, but he hasn't yet flashed as a corner looking to play the football and flip the field. Okay, maybe not a takeaway guy.
I think it had one interception
in 44 games. That has popped up on tape for multiple evaluators. It's not just Lance, so that is something that is standing out, his lack of playmaking.
Okay. He could see flags early in his career as he struggles to keep up with deep throws. He doesn't always trust his technique. Again, per Lance, he's physical and well coached with the potential to play as a nickelback or a roving safety.
So let me ask you a question about the position that they're drafting and the selection and where it is in the draft. Did you expect a day one starter at this spot?
Not at this spot, but between the 3 picks that are going to happen tonight, and you look at the 3 positions that we kind of have identified, our corner, safety, defensive tackle, is you just need to find at least one guy that's going to fill the gap there, especially because you could address it in free agency still. Like you still have Justin Simmons at safety. You still have Quandre Diggs at safety that are available. Steven Nelson is still out there at corner. So even if you don't feel great about this pick right now, like you have options. So as long as you get one guy of the 3 that can make an impact right away, that to me is a win at this point in the draft. Like it would be great. Like Cooper DeJean would have been an awesome pick here because he is a day one starter. Kool-Aid McKinstry, assuming that his Jones fracture will heal, because that's probably why he fell out of the first round, him and Johnny Newton both. Like he's a day one guy. So I'm fine with the pick. I would have liked someone that, is projected by people like Lance to be more of a day one starter, but it is what it is at this point. And, when we've talked about a lot, Paul, is I'm going to trust Nick Caserio
I'm going to trust Nick Caserio as well, but I think at the same time, you certainly can wonder, okay, maybe they should have traded up. Should they have traded up to go and get a corner in the first round? Should they have traded it to go up and get a corner earlier in this round? To what Del was saying a little bit earlier, is this the guy that they wanted? I will say, if it's a Georgia player, I feel pretty good about it. Alabama and Georgia, by default, I'm going to feel pretty good about it. That is not to say that every single player that comes out of those two programs ends up being a success, but at the very least, you have that in your back pocket. On top of that, well, Cooper DeJean, white guy playing corner. No offense. This is me talking about my people, okay? And on top of that, a guy coming off of a Jones fracture. Some concerns, but this is not the number one corner off the board. If I'm not mistaken, this would be number 6 on the NFL draft thus far.
Yeah, I was looking at Mel Kiper, ESPN's big board. They had him as, at the time when the pick was made, he was the 7th best prospect available. Only Enos Rakestraw, the cornerback from Missouri, was ranked in front of him. So
they could have chosen one slender corner or the other, and they chose Kamari Lassiter. I'm interested to see what they will use him for, particularly because Lance talked about how he's willing to stick his nose in there. But you look at Cooper DeJean and Kool-Aid McKinstry, both either 20 pounds or 20 plus pounds heavier than him. So this is a guy who, if you're going to put in a position to go make plays and as a force corner, can he hold up? He's willing, but will he be able, considering the size discrepancy he's going to face?
5'11 and a half, 186 pounds. That is my size.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
pretty much to a T.
Yeah, he's going to need to put some LBs on in the NFL.
In the NFL.
Yeah,
Okay,
and we'll see if he is actually 186. Is that his playing weight or what he got to
his
for the combine number?
Yeah. It is his NFL.com weight, so I would assume to what you said, Del, it is probably his combine weight. So the corners that went off the board right in front of him, and you have, first off, Quinion Mitchell from Toledo, who went 22nd. You had Terrion Arnold, who went 24th. The Eagles and Lions making those first 2 picks last night. Mitchell, a corner from Toledo. Arnold, a corner from Alabama. Nate Wiggins, the 30th pick to the Ravens last night. Then tonight, you've seen Cooper DeJean go to the Philadelphia Eagles, the 8th pick of the second round. Kool-Aid McKinstry, the 9th pick of the second round, to the New Orleans Saints. Kamari Lassiter goes to the Houston Texans. We just saw another corner go off the board.
4 straight corners.
Max Melton from Rutgers, pick number 11 to the Arizona Cardinals. I'm going to go back, though, to the guy that the Houston Texans just selected, Kamari Lassiter, because I saw an interesting comparison, because it allows us to tell a story, a fun story, a story about dice, a story about Madden. Lance Zierlein's NFL comparison, DeAndre Baker.
Okay.
For DeAndre Baker, first-round pick of the New York Giants in 2019, clipped after being arrested. His first season in the NFL in 2020, ends up going to the Kansas City Chiefs for a couple of seasons.
A Georgia player, by the way.
He is a Georgia player, correct. He now plays for the DC Defenders of the United Football League. For those who don't know about this story, I remember it because I was covering it up in Seattle. The Seahawks got this guy. He and Quinton Dunbar of the Seahawks were arrested for charges of armed robbery and aggravated assault with a firearm.
I remember this.
It was a house party featuring dice and Madden. And they're also featured one of the shadiest lawyers, who is somebody who I guess was once someone who ran for Miami Beach mayor and was
that tracks shady in Miami.
And
politics.
And he was fired over some sort of fraud. There were duffel bags of money exchanged. I don't know if it involved Baker, Dunbar, but anyway, a fun comparison to Kamari. To Kamari Lassiter.
It's not fun for Kamari.
He did not do any of those things.
It's fun for you. It's not fun for the Texans or Kamari.
Exactly. This is Lance Zierlein is comparing him on the field to DeAndre Baker.
And we see our first offensive lineman go off the board, Jackson Powers Johnson. He was a big hit at the Senior Bowl. Some people thought he could get into the first round. He falls to 44. So the Las Vegas Raiders go get them a center. And I just remember the hype around him. People watched the way he moved. Obviously, stout, a big center, almost 6'4", 330 pounds. So that's bigger than we're used to seeing from centers, particularly the guys we see that like the Kelsey types. That is not a Kelsey type. That's a stout dude who should hold up in pass protection and move guys off the ball. And he's quick enough that he won't be a liability. At least the Raiders hope. If they go to some zone type stuff on their offense.
Yeah, interesting too. Like they just announced the pick. They apparently submitted him as a guard. I guess they can do that by choice.
He does have that type of size.
So maybe he'll play guard for the Raiders as well. That's a good pick. The Raiders, we talked about the Bowers thing earlier today. I kind of talked myself back into that being a good idea.
Yeah.
Like you have Bowers, you have Michael Mayer, you have Devontae Adams, you have Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell, I guess, is your quarterback. Probably Gardner Minshew. But I actually kind of like what they're doing. They're going to run the ball. Samir White's a good running back. And like now you add a guard/center to this team. They're going to do like the Antonio Pierce, imagine, wanted to do some smash mouth football out there.
A little exotic smash mouth football. We're going to go old school Mike Mularkey, huh?
So we have Lance on Twitter talking about Kamari Lassiter.
What does he say?
He says he'll step right in and compete for a spot at nickel. He's not fast, but has really impressive foot quickness and smooth hips to match routes from the slot.
Interesting.
He's wired to be a see-ball, get-ball, run defender, which the Texans covet. And the first response and reply after Lance's tweet is, he's an outside cornerback. So someone who knows nothing probably decided, you know what? NFL.com's Lance Zierlein, you're wrong.
Interesting.
They have a lot of guys competing
For the nickel.
right.
So I guess it's like him and Desmond King. Is Desmond King a guy you feel like, Paul, that can move outside? Because like he to me was more like
He's at his best in the middle. I think that the thing that he showed last year is that when he is put into that kind of box role, he's very good in run support. He's very good coming off of the edge and blitzing and things like that. So yeah, I don't know.
Where you position Miles Bryant? You've seen him quite a bit.
He is also, that's what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
He's a special team guy or he is a nickel corner. So it's really interesting to see the route that they are going because they're stacking up on those nickel guys. Do they really feel like
Do they think
Jeff Okudah or
Okudah's
Henderson can do this?
Yeah, that we know.
Maybe they believe in those guys.
And you know, D'Amico's asked about it certainly because we're talking about guys who have, well, to be honest, washed out in other places.
Yeah.
And he talks about their ability. He talks about what they could be as opposed to what they have been, because if they had done anything, they wouldn't be available. So, do they actually believe in the Okudah or Johnson, or or Henderson, or do they know that there is a more highly priced cornerback that they have their eyes on that is willing to come in June or whenever that they make a decision? Because right now, if Lassiter is a nickel and he's going to fight for that spot, which also is a bit concerning that he not even locked into a starting spot at the nickel, something he'll have to compete for, which is okay. That's what you do. You let guys compete. I still have my concerns if the outside position is the one still being manned by Henderson and Okudah.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, you take a look at the depth chart, and again, it's ESPN's. How much stock do you put into it? But right now, they have Okudah lined up as the starting left corner opposite Derek Stingley Jr. I imagine a selection of a cornerback means that there's no return for Steven Nelson, who is still a free agent.
You'd think so.
Right. I mean, well, think about just the amount of acquisitions that they have made this offseason. It's not just Okudah and Henderson. And again, some of these guys are probably is a strong word, could be cut in training camp, the final roster cut down. But they added Miles Bryant, they added Mike Ford, and they brought back Desmond King, in addition to bringing in Jeff Okudah and CJ Henderson. And now they draft a corner in Kamari Lassiter out of Georgia. It is a very crowded room right now.
Yeah, one thing we talked about too before is the idea of maybe like this is the part of the safety solution as well. Like, could Henderson or Okudah, like, could they be transitional guys? A couple local guys coming off the board here. Edgerrin Cooper, the linebacker from Texas A&M, just went to the Green Bay Packers. And, well, if Jerry Jones's goal was to draft Jonathan Brooks in the NFL draft, that's not happening because he is going to be part of the new look Carolina Panthers this year.
You think David Tepper was thinking to himself, you know what? I'm going to outdo Jerry Jones, okay? And in terms of making an ass, which he did on Thursday night, of course, because you remember, if you don't know, David Tepper, owner of the Carolina Panthers, saw a restaurant that had a sign that said, hey, let the head coach and the general manager make the pick. He went inside, he removed the host's hat and seemed to reprimand him before shaking his hand and leaving. We didn't get to hear the audio of that. So that happened.
I need the audio.
But a little bit later, in a post-first round of the draft press conference with the Dallas Cowboys, we saw Jerry Jones, owner of the Cowboys, say, yeah, we want Jonathan Brooks.
Yeah, well, Yeah, well, Jerry, we know it's either Big 12 or SEC, and most importantly, if it's an Arkansas guy, forget about it. If they're in a spot where he can take them, more from Lance on Kamari Lassiter, as you know, he's going to be answering questions for people who want to know. He ran a 6.4. Lance had him as a second round pick before. He saw that speed. That's why he dropped him to the third. Certainly, if he's on the outside, it's concerning, but he also goes on to say his short area testing helped convince Lance that he could get the job done as a nickel inside because they need to match quickness and be with slot targets, and he believes he can step up to the challenge as a run defender when needed. So, overly, I guess you could say certainly a positive review from Lance. I'm sure he's not going to put a guy in the third, even the third round if he thinks he's not good. But the speed is the one thing you might have to worry about. So guys are going to be able to run away from him. That's why you put him on the inside to help him out on that. So the Texans, at least according to Lance, took a third round and a second. Does that mean they were just afraid of what the draft board looked like at corner? Maybe. And we won't ever know who they really wanted because Kamari was their guy. He was the top of the board. Yeah. We really wanted him.
They'll say that.
Yeah, until
you believe it.
Until Aaron Wilson investigates. We'll
yeah,
really
it was
find out.
like we just saw something like that today. I think it was Ari Marov or whatever it is. He reported that the New York Giants offered the 6th pick in their first rounder in 2025 to the New England Patriots for the 3rd pick so they could take Drake May. And the Patriots said, nope.